Welcome back, bourbon lovers, to Chasing the Unicorn, your quest for the perfect pour. I'm your host, John Schuster, and on this episode, we're unlocking the secrets to truly tasting bourbon like a pro. Get ready to elevate your palate and discover a whole new world of flavor. So last time we dove into the world of proof and age statements. Now that we understand those fundamentals, it is time to put that knowledge to work and train our senses. Ever wonder how to identify those subtle nuances in your favorite bourbons? Today, we're breaking down the 5 S's of tasting: swirl, see, smell, sip, and savor, and giving those practical tips to build your own flavor library. It's time to go beyond just drinking and truly experience the spirit itself. Now, if you're new here to Chasing the Unicorn podcast, you can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Amazon Music. So that's right, bourbon lovers. It is episode 5 of our prologue series, airing on Wednesday, December 18th, 2024, and we're diving deep into tasting like a pro. Develop your bourbon palate. So we're building on what we learned about proof and age and taking it to the next level, enhancing your tasting skills. I'm also excited to share some news about the future of Chasing the Unicorn. My wife and I are taking our annual holiday break for the last 2 weeks of the year, but we have a special Christmas episode ready for you for December 25th. And even bigger news, starting January 1st, 2025, yeah, that's a Wednesday, we're officially launching Chasing the Unicorn Season 1. Our weekly podcast will continue, and we're expanding it to 2 new segments to wet your whistle on. The first is Bourbon Across America, and what we're going to do here is we're going to spotlight distilleries from around the U.S. so that you know where to go. And our second part is From the Archives for you history buffs, where we'll explore key moments in history, and hopefully it'll be around the time of each episode. Now, here's a sneak peek at what's coming up in the first few weeks of January. So starting with our premiere season, you can look at Whiskey Wanderlust, plan your ultimate bourbon adventure. We're going to follow it up with Waterworks, discover the impact of water on bourbon's flavor, and I'll tell you, that one's pretty interesting. Then we move on to Bourbon During Prohibition, uncover the surprising history of bourbon during the Roaring '20s. And if you don't know, you're going to find out. Bourbon in History, trace the origins of this iconic American spirit. And finally, Bourbon Myths and Misconceptions, separate fact from fiction in the bourbon world. So between now and New Year's, we're putting some finishing touches on the podcast. So catch our Christmas special and definitely be here for the launch of Season 1. This episode, we're going to be exploring the 5 S's, as I said, of bourbon tasting, sharing practical tips, and of course, enjoying a perfect pour. We'll also have our regular bourbon buzz and around the barrel segments, so pour yourself a dram and let's get started. Now, if you're not sure what a dram is, you definitely should be listening to this podcast. So it is time for Bourbon Buzz, where we keep you in the loop on all the latest happenings in the whiskey world. So let's see what's been stirring. So how about a French twist on Texas bourbon? Texas bourbon gets a French twist. Still Austin Whiskey Company has just released Tangier, a unique blending featuring red, white, blue corn, plus rye and barley. But here's the kicker. They're using Petit Bois blending method, and it's usually used for cognac and Armagnac, so it's kind of exciting to see what these distilleries are doing when they're pushing boundaries like this. I am curious to see how this French influence will translate into the final product, and it sounds like I'm going to enjoy this pour, so I'll be looking for it. If you're wondering what Petit Bois is, it's a blending method, and, well, we're not going to spend too much time on it, so if you want to know more about it, let us know in the social media links. We'll catch you up on another episode with that. Now, for all of us sweet tooths out there, rum and maple syrup in a bourbon? Yeah, Penelope Bourbon has just dropped Havana, a rum barrel finished bourbon also finished in a maple syrup cask. Now, that's an intriguing combination. It promises a complex flavor profile, blending characteristics of bourbon and rum with a touch of maple sweetness. It's a bold move and definitely intriguing by the potential flavor interplay here, so I'm definitely going to be looking for this one. Your own Knob Creek barrel. Yeah, I'll take one of those, thank you. I know somebody else that would love to have this at home. Bourbon Droid, I hope you're listening to this one. Ever dream of owning your own barrel of bourbon? Beam Suntory has just launched the Beam Private Barrel Club, giving members the chance to purchase and personalize their own single barrel of Knob Creek bourbon and or rye. You can even select your barrel in Kentucky and participate in the tasting itself. This is a great opportunity for serious bourbon enthusiasts to get your hands on the selection process and curate a truly unique bottling experience. It's a great way to experience the whole barrel selection process. Blanton's under $60 at Costco. I tell you, that's a steal. For all you Blanton lovers out there, here's some news that's going to make your head turn. Blanton's single barrel bourbon has been spotted at Costco for under $60, well below its normal market value. Now, we already know this is highly sought after bourbon, so this sweet flavor profile and collectible bottle is definitely something you need to look at. If you're a member of Costco and a Blanton's fan, it is time to make a Costco run. In fact, I should probably go now. Well, we'll get it next time. So double gold for $17.92. The Olympics are over, but the gold medals are still coming home. Some exciting news from the 2024 New York World Spirits Competition. $17.92 Bottle and Bond, their full proof and single barrel all took home double gold medals. These medals are a symbol of the quality and craftsmanship of these bourbons, and I say they're worth checking out if you haven't already. I am a fan of all three expressions, and I'm glad to see them get this recognition. Now let's turn our heads a little bit and go around the barrel and see what's happening in the bourbon community. So Bourbon and Beyond breaks a new record. Big news for the festival scene. Bourbon and Beyond in Louisville has broken attendance records, drawing over 210,000 people in 2024. That makes it the largest music festival in Kentucky history. It was also named Best Festival of 2024 by the IEBA Conference. And if you're not sure what the IEBA is, International Entertainment Buyers Association is what it stands for. Now, this shows how much bourbon and music really go hand in hand, and it sounds like an amazing event. While we didn't get to see it this last year, it might have to make our schedule this coming year. Of course, only the future will tell on that one. A little bit of holiday cheer at Buffalo Trace. Buffalo Trace is getting into the holiday spirit with their 26th annual Holidays at the Trace event. This year featured a new Spirited Nights experience, complete with a 60-foot tall tunnel and themed displays. Sorry, that is not 60-foot tall, but a 60-foot long. If you're looking for a festive way to experience a historic distillery, mark your calendars for next year's event. This sounds like a good way to get into the holiday spirit. And can we say sustainable bourbon in the Kentucky Bourbon Trail? I think we can. If you're planning a trip to Kentucky Bourbon Trail, make sure you add New Riff Distillery into your itinerary. They're committed to sustainable practices using a limestone-rich aquifer for water and energy savings. It's great to see distilleries prioritizing sustainability while producing high-quality bourbon. Definitely a win-win for us all. And Tampa has got some hidden speakeasy. Shh, let's not talk about that one. Finally, if you're looking for a unique night out, check out the speakeasies of Tampa, Florida. Places like Jekyll and Bar Chicha offer a taste of the Prohibition era with their hidden entrances and unique atmospheres. Sounds like a fun way to step back in time and enjoy some well-crafted cocktails. All right, it is time to put on our lab coat and get a little geeky in Drunken Unicorn Uncorked today. We are all about becoming bourbon connoisseurs one sip at a time. So it's more than just drinking, unlocking a world of bourbon flavor. That's where we're headed right now. Now, you might be thinking, tasting bourbon, isn't that just drinking it? Sure, that's part of the fun of it, but there's a whole world of flavor waiting to be unlocked if you know how to approach it. And that's what we're going to be going over today. So, let's break it down. The 5 S's of bourbon tasting. But first, we need a little prep work. So, make sure you've got a bourbon glass, bourbon neat in that glass, i.e. bourbon with no water, no ice, and you have poured yourself at least about an ounce or so. If you really want to get fancy, you can grab yourself a sniffing glass. It would be a tulip-shaped glass, typically known as a Glencairn, but that is a brand name. These are perfect for sniffing bourbon, so feel free to grab one if you don't have one. Now, 5 S's is definitely the guide to bourbon tasting, so let's start with the first S, which is the swirl. Now, you might be used to swirling your wine to open it up and get a good look at those legs, right? But bourbon has a different story. Those legs can tell us something about the proof and viscosity. But too much swirling actually makes it harder to smell the actual whiskey. Why? It agitates the ethanol, and those intense alcohol fumes can overpower the subtle aromas. Also burn out your nose while you're at it. So, a gentle swirl at first. Just get those legs going. Some people actually will roll it at a 45-degree angle just to see what the legs look like. The big question is, are they thick and syrupy, or are they thin and quickly disappear? Thicker legs often mean a higher proof or richer bourbon. So next, let's do something with our eyes. Let's take a good look. What is that color? Is it a deep amber, like a maple syrup? Or is it a light gold, like honey? The color gives you a little bit of a clue about the age and the barrel influence. A darker bourbon might have spent a little more time in aging and a heavily charred barrel. And speaking of colors, does this remind anybody else of the military hydration chart? You know the one. Different shades of yellow tells you whether you're good to go or you're going to pass out on that ruck march. You know if you know. With that said, let's move on to the third S, smell, and as we like to call it, the nose. This is where it gets interesting. Did you know we actually smell out of one side of our nostrils at a time? It's true. Our nose alternate from side to side, and right now, yep, my left nose is definitely the MVP of the day, so I'll be sniffing out of the left. What about you? Think about it. Sniff on your right and then on your left, and then check it out. Which one did you smell more out of? If you smelled nothing, then grab something else and check it out. But that being said, don't just jam your nose into the glass. Tilt it at about a 45-degree angle and sniff it from the side. If you sniff just a little bit, what you should get is the aromas. If you're having a hard time finding those aromas, then what you want to do is move it a little bit closer each time until you actually get some sort of smell of something. Now, if this is their first time and you're just getting started, you're going to have a very simplistic smell. You might smell some corn. You might smell a few other things. What you don't want is you don't want a whole lot of alcohol. So if you're getting a whole lot of alcohol, back it away from your nose a little bit and stop swirling it. So, if you move closer and you start to get those scents and they start to emerge for you, I want you to waft the glass side to side a little bit and see if you can pick up some other aromas. Sometimes this makes it easier to detect those aromas because each aroma has a different layer and a different weight to it. So, we've smelled it, we've seen it, we've thought about it. Now it's time to sip and savor this. This is the heart of the tasting experience. So our main event is the sip. Take a small sip, and here's what I want you to do. Hold on before you take that sip. I want you to take it. I want you to coat your palate. Don't rush it. I want you to count to 10. I want you to move it around your mouth. Some people refer to this as the Kentucky Chew. Not trying to be biased towards Kentucky, but the whole idea is to get it to move all around your mouth, completely coating your tongue and the sides and the roof of your mouth. Once you're there, here's what I want you to think about. Before you go to swallow, breathe out. If you breathe out, what you will do is those vapors will go out instead of in. If they go in, it's going to come up your nose and you're going to get what they call the dreaded burn. But by breathing out, it vents the alcohol and lets you taste those lingering flavors. Pay attention to how it feels. Is it smooth? Is it velvety? Does it feel like melted chocolate? Or is it oily and rich like olive oil? Is it spicy or tingly like a cinnamon gum? Notice the flavors and how they develop. Sweet at first, like brown sugar, then spicy, woody, like black pepper and cedar. Now, we'll like to back up just one moment. Our first sip, we should have just swirled it around and put it in our mouth and then swallowed it. And we wouldn't talk about flavors. So if this is your first sip, those flavors probably are not going to be very good. We just warmed up our palate. So you're going to take a second sip. And once you've taken that second sip, then you're going to ask yourself, what are my flavors that I'm starting to get versus how does it feel? Now, finally, we have the finish. This is normally our third sip. And with this, that's where we get the magic. When you take this other sip, this third sip, what we're going to do is we're going to pay attention to how long those flavors linger. That's what's left behind. Is it a warmth spreading through you like a cozy fire? Maybe a lingering spice like gingerbread? Does it have a sweet reminder like a honey drizzled biscuit that you just finished and you're appreciating the complexity and the nuance? Take your time, explore those flavors, and enjoy the ride. Now, here's the key. try and identify those individual flavors. This takes practice, but it's like learning a new language. You got to start somewhere. Start by focusing on the basics, the sweet, the sour, the bitter, the spicy. Then as you become more familiar, you'll start to pick out those subtle nuances like hints of tobacco or leather or even floral notes. But training your palate, you probably need a few tips and tricks. So here's what I want to do. I want to tell you about how to train your palate. Here's a few things you can do. The first one you can do is build a flavor library. Just like we talked about taking some notes, start continuously associating flavors with everyday things. When you eat a piece of caramel candy, really focus on the flavor. When you smell freshly cut wood, take it in and think about it. The more you pay attention to the world around you, the more the flavor vocabulary will start to expand for you. You can use things like a flavor wheel. There's some really cool flavor wheels designed specifically for whiskey. These wheels break down the different categories of flavors you might find in a bourbon, from fruity and floral to woody and spicy. They can help you pinpoint what you're tasting and put a name to that sensation. Another way is try a tasting kit. There are some awesome tasting kits out there that come with small vials of different flavor extracts. Now, don't drink them. These kits can help you identify and identify those specific aromas and flavors commonly found in bourbon. It's like a workout for your nose and taste buds, but again, don't drink it. Another fun one is just grab a few friends and do yourself a blind tasting. Cover up the bottles, pour some samples, and see what you can identify. If it's a different bourbon than what you're used to, see if you can identify the flavors. All I can say is this is a fun way for a drinking game to be started, and by the time you're done, you'll have had fun either way. A great opportunity is visit some distilleries. If you have the opportunity, go and visit that distillery and take a tour. Many distilleries offer tasting experiences, and they'll walk you through the different flavors of their whiskey. You can learn more about that from the experts that they have on site. Finally, if you read and research, there are tons of books, articles, you name it, podcasts even. Doing some reading and exploring different resources will keep your learning going. The more you engage your senses and actively explore the world of flavor, the better you'll become at identifying those nuances in your bourbon. And it's a journey of discovery, and it's one that never really gets old. Finally, remember, tasting is subjective. What you taste might be different from someone else's experience, and that's okay. The beauty of bourbon is that it offers something for everyone. So this, my friends, is how we like to chase the unicorn and find our perfect pour. And with that, we definitely need to move on to the perfect pour. This is a pour that's perfect for exploring those subtle flavors and uncovering a piece of bourbon history. We're going to be looking at Mary Dowling Straight Winter Wheat Bourbon today. A tribute to a pioneering woman in bourbon, this unique bourbon, crafted by Rabbit Hole Distillery out of Kentucky, is named after Mary Dowling, a true pioneer in the bourbon world. Back in the late 19th century, when the bourbon industry was almost entirely dominated by men, Mary Dowling made her mark as a successful distiller. She owned and operated several distilleries in Kentucky, and her whiskey was known for its exceptional quality. So a wheated mash bill with a unique finish, yeah, that's where we're at. But there's more to her story. When Prohibition hit, Mary didn't let that stop her. She moved her operations to Juarez, Mexico, and continued to produce her whiskey, even supplying it to American speakeasies. This was a woman who knew how to hustle. And yes, we said whiskey because bourbon didn't come around to 1964, legally that is. So today, Rabbit Hole Distillery is honoring her legacy with this special bourbon. It's made with a unique wheat-forward mash bill, 65% corn, 25% wheat, and 10% malted barley, which gives it a softer, gentler character than those traditional rye-heavy bourbons. They use a sweet mash process, and it's aged for over 4 years in a No. 3 charred oak, medium toast American oak barrel from Kelvin Cooperage. So you can definitely find a symphony of flavors. And get this, they finished this thing in toasted barrels. This adds another layer of flavor and complexity. According to their website, Mary Dowling Winter Wheat is a symphony of ripe cherry, roasted nuts, and golden honey, meticulously aged in wood-fired barrels, delivering a velvety smooth finish with delicate notes of apple spice and cinnamon. I can tell you, it is a great pour with a complex and intriguing flavor profile. So here's what you can expect when you pour yourself a glass. On the nose, you'll get delicate floral aromas with hints of ripe cherry, oak, dark stone fruit, along with notes of sandalwood, chia spice, pipe smoke, mixed with hints of cherries and brown sugar. On the palate, smooth and creamy with notes of caramel, butterscotch, and a subtle spice with layers of toasted coconut, chocolate grilled peaches, and dark baking spices. When you get to the finish, it is a medium-long finish with lingering sweetness and a hint of oak with notes of black pepper, allspice, leather, cinnamon, nutmeg, and cereal grains. This bourbon is a great example of how different mash bills and unique finishing processes can create a whole new flavor experience. It's also a tribute to the legacy of Mary Dowling, who defied expectations and made her mark in a male-dominated industry. If you want to learn more about Mary Dowling and this winter wheat expression, I'll link their website in the show notes. So, continuing our quest for the perfect pour, it is last call. Today we've taken another step on our quest for the perfect pour by diving into the art of tasting. By refining our senses and understanding the 5 S's, we get closer to truly appreciating the nuances of each bourbon. We also explored the unique Mary Dowling Straight Winter Wheat Bourbon, a pour with a story as rich as its flavor. A question for you: unexpected bourbon flavors. As we continue this quest, I want to hear from you. What's the most surprising or unexpected flavor you've ever found in a bourbon? Share your experiences with us on social media using the hashtag #ChasingTheUnicorn We are looking for good flavors, by the way. So next time, we're going to talk about the rise of the craft. On our next episode, we're exploring a vital part of the modern bourbon scene, the rise of the craft distillery movement. We'll be looking at how these smaller distilleries are shaping the industry and bringing new and exciting expressions to the market. It's an episode you definitely are not going to want to miss. So that's a wrap for this week's episode of Chasing the Unicorn. I truly hope you enjoyed our exploration of bourbon tasting and that now you're equipped to appreciate your next pour at a whole new level. Special thanks to Rabbit Hole Distilling for producing the wonderful Mary Dowling Straight Winter Wheat Bourbon. It is definitely a great pour in my opinion. I'm incredibly grateful for your support and for being part of this amazing community of bourbon lovers. Your passion fuels this show for sure. So don't forget to subscribe, share the podcast with your friends, and connect with us on social media. Just search for Chasing the Unicorn Podcast. You can find us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and Amazon Music. This episode of Chasing the Unicorn was brought to you by Drunken Unicorn Productions, where we're always chasing that perfect pour. Maybe we get a little tipsy along the way, but until next time, sip, savor, and enjoy. Cheers.